Good afternoon, YouTube. Good afternoon. It's your guy, J Crew to you, coming at you yet with another video. Know it's been a few weeks since I last on the video, but I felt like it was time for me to, bring my opinion, to the online sector regarding the passing of yet another legendary figure. For those of you who've been following my channel, and I've done videos about the passing of other artists and comedians over the past few months. In terms of their uh, date with the afterlife being put into effect. But yet, I want to bring another video of a person I think deserves that sort of dedication. The person I'm doing the video about today is a gentleman by the name of Robert Kleckler Bowden, most known as Bobby Bowden in the world of college football. For those of you who have ever heard of Bobby Bowden, he's a tremendous college football coach. He's one of those gentlemen that not only did he win a lot of football games throughout his college career at Florida State University, he definitely left his mark. He was one of those gentlemen that left his mark in the fact that whenever he was in front of a microphone, he had the innate ability of being able to come across well. Had the gift of the gab, could make you laugh. And I know to me, Bobby Brown has always come off almost as if like he could be like your uncle, your lovable grandfather. He always had this sort of jolly good fellow sort of persona about him. Um, just give a little brief synopsis of his career and his life. He was born in November 1929 at Birmingham, Alabama, but eventually, as we all know, he eventually got to Tallahassee, Florida, where Florida State University is located, and left his mark as one of the legendary coaches of the game. Bobby Bowden originally played football on the collegiate level and the high school level in Alabama. But what I thought was interesting about Bobby Bowden, I really just kind of learned this today doing some research, was that, and the people could correct me if I'm wrong, if I mistake this, but I learned that Bobby Bowden was a quarterback at Alabama, I think, in his freshman year, but he quit because they had this policy where they couldn't get married or something like that. And he was so in love with his high school sweetheart, he said, "You know what? I'm gonna quit playing football. I'm gonna marry you, and I'm gonna go in and go into the coaching ranks." So he's been to different schools. He started going to different schools rather to sort of build up his coaching resume. He was what a lot of people would call a positional coach at different schools, coach, wide receivers at one school. I believe he even coached wide receiver at Florida State at one period. Then he went away and then he came back as the head coach in 1976, where he remained in place for 34 years. What's even more remarkable about Bobby Bowden is that during his 10 years as Florida State head coach, he only had one losing season, and that was his first in 1976. I just thought that was remarkable to be able to pull something like that off. Because in a day and age, even going back to the 90s, where the college football is one of those things, one of those worlds where you don't know what's going to happen with your career from one year to the next, he was a model of consistency. And he brought a respectability to not only Florida State football, but the coaching ranks. I know me personally, in addition to Bobby Bowden, Florida State's colors in terms of their uniforms always look real cool to me. They have I believe they call it garnet and gold mixture to their uniforms, and then they have the gold helmets with the arrows on it. That's like one of the more common color schemes I know nowadays. All college football teams are mixing up their color schemes with their uniforms all kind of ways. Uh, but with but with Florida State, they just always kind of click with me. Of course, if you coach that long, you've been that successful, you've had some pretty good players. Back in the 80s, one of the more notable players they had at Florida State was, of course, the legendary Deion Sanders, who was a cornerback and a special teams punt and return man back in the mid to late 80s. Was they had Deion Sanders in the early 90s. They had Warwick Dunn, who was a running back, a little small guy, like a jitterbug kind of running back, but was very dynamic in terms of what he could bring to the table. So, Warwick Dunn was another notable player. And one of my personal favorite players was quarterback. Charlie Ward, who was there in the early '90s along with Ward Dunn, where they really were able to, put together some memorable seasons. And Charlie Ward won the Heisman Trophy, I believe, in 1993. And also, one of my all-time favorite players is Peter Ward, the wide receiver that was there in the mid to late '90s. And so those are just some of the few favorite players of mine that played under Coach Bobby Bowden. And those guys really kind of made me develop a favor towards Florida State, in addition to Coach Bobby Bowden. As many people run into when they coach college football, of course, there's an aspect of college football that goes with it called balancing academics and athletics. You just don't show up and play college football. Um, when you get there, you have to help your players understand and help manage their time by balancing their academics and athletics. In the mid 2000s, like 2005, 2007, Florida State ran into what you call allegations of academic fraud, in which they were allegedly, making guys eligible who really weren't eligible to play football. Maybe they had failing grades, and they tried to help them pass or something, and it really wasn't supposed to happen. And so they had to vacate some wins, as a result. So Bobby Bowden finished his career with 377 wins, and it was only second to Joe Paterno, who was a football coach at the head football coach at Penn State University, who had 409 wins. So academic fraud or not, that's an impressive record. And it was just announced today that Bobby Bowden on August 8th, 2021, passed away of pancreatic cancer. I had just read a few days back that he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I think this maybe came out at the end of July, the last week of July maybe of this year, that he had been diagnosed with some kind of terminal illness, but it wasn't revealed at the time. I believe one of his sons this morning said it was a pancreatic cancer that he had, and he was 91 years old. And at that age, you're so fragile and frail, you're probably not coming back from that. And so, at 91 years old, Bobby Bowden has passed on to the Mount Olympics uh, of college football coaches. Even though he was already there here on earth, he's there in heaven. So I like to say, rest in peace to Bobby Bowden. You definitely left your mark on college football, sir. And I definitely respect you as a fan of college football. And you made me a fan of Florida State football. Y'all have a good one. Until next time, she got J. Crew to you signing off. Thank you.